Galimera, Galispera, Galinichta, no matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be. Thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. It's hump day, it's midweek. Let's get stuck into some musings with one of our favourites. Let's rock and roll, squaddies.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
The Lord giveth and then he taketh away. A night where we saw the Premier League return and a very special player return. And once again, this roller coaster ride of a season continues. Here to dissect it with us is Pedro, LeGrove, the Arsenal Opinion. Welcome back to Squad Central.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having me on.
Good to see you. How you doing, firstly? Outside of football, everything good?
Yeah, everything is fantastic. We started a MLS season in St. Louis, which is great. Arsenal, I've come to terms with what this season is and what it's going to be, and now I'm starting to build up my my hopium for next season. I think there's a lot of positives to talk about, and I'm living in this world at the moment. I've got two more weeks in the Champions League. We've got 2 more weeks in the Champions League, and I'm going to enjoy thinking about playing Real Madrid. And it's what we. Like 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was like, I'd be watching Man City, Chelsea, and I'd be like, we will never get to this level of football again. And now we're at that level. We're playing big teams in exciting games. We're competitive, and we're on the cusp of greatness. So you always have to put that in perspective. I was watching, I don't know whether you saw it, Granit Xhaka having a big argument in the stands with a Bayer Leverkusen fan. And it's like, mate, those boys have performed miracles. They won the league against all the odds. They were sitting at the bottom half of the table before Xabi Alonso picked it up. You should be grateful. And I sometimes feel like that as an Arsenal fan when I'm critiquing all of the things. It's like I should be grateful for where we are. We're not winning trophies at the moment, but I'm pretty sure they're going to come.
Yeah, lots to dissect with you, and I agree with a lot of what you have said there. Just like our Chief Like Officer Tammy says, hit the like button. 6 p.m. unusual hour. Those of you listening on replay, make sure that you hit up our YouTube comments, and please, if you can, guys, go subscribe to the iTunes, Apple Podcasts link. It's back up. We've resolved the virus issue, and it's included in the description of this show. Right, why don't I name this the what if season, Pedro. I don't really like to, my listeners know I only use the rearview mirror to check my lipstick, right? But you can't help, like, even when Jason Cundy on TalkSport last night is talking about what ifs for Arsenal, and a few people have started to I think now Saka's back and you see the immediate impact he had, you start to think about the what ifs. Let's start with, what do you think, whether it's an if only or a what if, what do you think is the biggest what if of the season? Because I think there's at least 3 categories or what ifs for me, but what is the biggest one for you? And we'll get to Saka and the injuries and Fulham, but I really want to kind of start here.
I think the biggest what if for me is, what if Arsenal went into last summer with the same aggression they went into the summers for the 4 previous. I think the club didn't get their act together. They didn't gather around a good plan. They made incoherent, maybe not totally incoherent. They made poor decisions with hindsight. And they stalled us a year. And I think that every single problem that we can talk about with Arsenal this season comes down to, I don't even want to say poor squad planning, because I know that they had the names. They knew the players. They weren't lacking for ideas. They just didn't have the momentum going into it. We didn't spend enough. We didn't sell early enough. And we started the season short in key positions that have been brutally exposed this season. Man City went into the season exposed in certain areas. Like they started the season with 1 striker, but every single position we were exposed in. We got hit hard, and I think it all comes down to momentum and focus. And we seem to have lost a little bit of it last year, and still, for the life of me, can't understand how we allowed that to happen, because the Premier League should be Arsenal's this year, not Liverpool's. And Liverpool didn't do a lot last summer, but they were just a bit more blessed.
It is the preparation, because one of the things, of course, I think that one of the big what ifs is, the injuries. But it ties into kind of what you're talking about, is the aggression. And I keep showing these same pictures. Sometimes I don't even have to change the thumbnails, Pedro, because it feels like it's just the same story. So when you look at, I always say to the listeners, I bet you miss Kai Havertz now. Martinelli's back and he was wonderful yesterday. We have not seen a lot of that this season. Seeing SAKA again last night was incredible. So you kind of look at the injuries as part of the what if, but you could accept the injuries if the preparedness was there to cover for them, right? Would you agree with that? You're on mute.
I would probably still focus on how we got to the injuries. I think that's a different discussion. But you're right. So during the Arsene Wenger years, you could pitch exactly what was going to happen. You were like, we don't have a number 6, we don't have tall centre backs, and we don't have enough squad depth. And sure enough, every season, most serious Arsenal fans would be right about the shortcomings. And the pain point in the latter years of Arsene Wenger was, you don't put us in a position to win ever, and we don't win. So I always want to be able to say my club tried its absolute hardest to get to the highest level, and they flopped because of these reasons. And if the club is putting as much effort into to winning as we are as fans, then you're kind of happy. But for me, last summer, it was the first summer where you're like, wow, like what happened here? Did we just decide that we weren't as interested? Were we dithering around financials? Was it PSR? There were a whole bunch of odd things that happened last summer, and it started early, because I know that there was, Arsenal have had interest in players like Douglas Luiz in the past, and you're like, shouldn't we be looking at a player like that to replace some of our aging midfield? And he ends up going to Juventus, and I just wonder, we weren't nimble. It felt like there was a lack of focus behind the scenes, because I don't believe that everybody at Arsenal was like, what we need right now? A young Italian centre back that's injury prone. I think we need a kind of turgid left-sided 8 in Marino. I don't think that was everybody's view. So it felt like maybe there was a bit of a power vacuum. And when you think about it, and I wanted to get your take on this, you've when you're going to quit a job, and you're thinking about quitting a job for a lot longer than before it starts getting to interview stages and final offers. And I just wanted to know whether you thought that Edu's lack of focus last summer might have had something to do to it. When you're not really paying attention in meetings because you don't really care. I just think about Edu thinking about treble your pay, big football CEO job, like grass is greener. I don't really enjoy it here like I used to. Do you think that Edu's lack of focus might have played a role in the problems last summer?
I think that's a very fair, and I think it's a really good question. And if I go by what my friends over and contacts and fellow podcasters in Greece covering Olympiacos, I would say yes, because the romancing of Edu did not just start 4 weeks before he handed in his notice. I was told by a very reliable source that he was at Marinagi's, a holiday home, mansion, call it what you want. I don't know if it was an Airbnb, a rental. I'm pretty sure he has a place there in Mykonos, hanging out with the Marinagi's, crew, staff. He has been very friendly with them for a very long time, and they've been serenading him for quite some time. So I think it's 100% fair to suggest that maybe he took his eye off the ball and he was thinking about other things. The other thing too, I think, maybe he felt that it was really weird, because on the US tour as well, Edu was far less present than he was the season prior. He was really part of the LA events. I had 2 or 3 really good conversations with him. He loved being at Arsenal. He loved what he was building at Arsenal. And maybe, he saw change coming. maybe Tim Lewis. I feel like there's something there with him and Tim Lewis and Richard Garlick, maybe. And that's just my humble opinion. I'm not talking about knowing anything additional. So maybe he saw some changes coming. So yeah, I do believe it has an effect. And you're 100% right. I've been in that position where I'm like checking out. I've handed in my notice and I care a little less. Of course, I want to leave on good terms. I don't want to burn any bridges. And I think that, you know, the game's changed at Arsenal, Pedro. I don't know what it is, right? Bringing in Berta is a huge signal. And I'll flip this back to you because the Cronkies have been much maligned and criticized by a number of fans. But like you said, you know, bumper summers, they've changed, and the kind of transfer objectives, they've handed Mikel a ton of money. Sometimes I think it's blurred that they haven't given him money, whereas has Mikel spent the money in the right places? You talk about Marino and Calafiori, could have bought a striker. Yeah. So is it a case, though, of them saying, you know, we've given him enough and you're not working on the Berta deal, like I said, same with Adu, a month before he comes in. That's a long serenading. That's a long conversation. These things don't happen overnight. And I believe in my gut that they didn't want to hand the keys to the transfer kingdom to Mikel and those guys, and Ato especially in January. They wanted to put their foot on the brake and say, look, I want this guy to come in as a killer and we'll go again in the summer. Do you think there's any merit to what I'm saying there?
I think if Arsenal could have got Benjamin Sesko in January, I think they would have signed him. I don't think. I think the decision by Ato was a mature one, not to spend money. I don't think it was because he didn't have the opportunity. Like the Arsenal as a club believe that there are better deals to be had in the summer. There are better options, lower price points, and I think the math that they did was, you know, very much like that summer when we tried to sign Vlahovic. 65 million for Vlahovic, and we were all gutted when we didn't sign him. And then that following summer, we got Zinchenko and Gabby Jesus for less than the fee of Vlahovic, and then we got into the top four, and the rest is history. So I think I'm not sure that was exactly the point. And I don't like Andrea Berta is not a hire to be a counterbalance to Arteta. Andrea Berta is a hired gun to do exactly what Arteta wants, with the expertise and background that he's had working with a really difficult manager. And that's why I was, you know, a little bit disappointed to see that we'd signed Berta. You know, the James McNicholas's article, you know, really good article, but kind of doubled down on all the fears that I had. You know, Arteta played a strong role in bringing him in. Obviously, he's got to be able to work with the person. He's got to respect him. But just this sort of celebration of another sporting director who's got good contacts, other sporting directors rejecting us because they didn't like the structure. Like these are all red flashing lights. And it's like Arsenal don't believe the sporting director necessarily needs to sit over the manager. He does. He really does. There aren't many major clubs in the world where the manager isn't beholden to a higher power in the sporting department. It's just a weird structure, and I just worry that I think we're going to win trophies. That's I think we're going to win trophies. Andrea Berta has to do something really bad for us not to get to that level. My concern is what you're left with after. Only takes one or two duff signings, one or two contact signings. If you just take this guy for a year, we'll give you an opportunity on this guy a little bit later. And then you start loading yourself up with the Cedric Suarez characters of the world. And then you fall off. In Spain, you can get away with those sorts of signings because it's not a very competitive league compared to the Premier League. In the Premier League, you have one or two bad signings and you can just be nowheresville. You know, look at Manchester City, champions to sitting in fifth. Maybe not making the top four this season because they missed one player. So I think bringing in somebody that doesn't speak English, has been blessed by the manager, who's not there to wrangle, a really powerful, talented person. He's there to complement. Like, I don't like it. I don't think it's the same as Raul from Barcelona, but I don't think it's the optimum way to work. And I do worry that we've set a standard now for another king, which is exactly what we had under Arsene Wenger, and look how that ended when his powers started to fade.
So I thought there was some, like you, some telling signs in James's article. You've taken it to another level for me. I love how you think. This is, to me, the thing that I got excited about with Berta, and this was before the article came out, was that, you know, there were still associations, you know, with Alabe and potentially Riziki. I felt like the Berta hire was to extract some power from Mikel Arteta. And I believe that he needs to be put under pressure from a sporting director and feel someone breathing down his neck. It really felt to me like maybe in the couple of weeks, the way he was acting in press conferences, he was very animated last night on the touchline too, that maybe he was feeling that. But the more you dissect it, the more I become concerned that, are we saying that he is still the Don at Arsenal, even with this hire?
100%. The most important person at Arsenal, without a shadow of a doubt, is Mikel Arteta. He is king, and Andrea Berta has come in to fortify his power. Also, the craziest thing ever, and I know, like, this is just a slight tangent that I absolutely love. You've worked in the corporate world before. You understand how, like, CEOs of big, you know, S&P 500 companies work. They put a CEO in charge, and then they have like these payment committees, and they put people that they know on these payment committees, and they say, oh, you know, Joe Bloggs, we've done a bit of market analysis, and we think his pay should go from 5 million a year to 35 million a year. And then all his mates sign it off, and then they move around companies, and they always put the same people on these boards so that their pay gets out of whack with the rest of the world. And Mikel Arteta has signed a sporting director who was responsible for giving Diego Simeone a 33 million euro a year contract, the richest contract in world football. Outside the sporting stuff, that is a powerful move by Mikel Arteta. So I'm this is not a balancing of the power move. This is a fortifying of the power, and even just the basics from a cultural perspective. You know, like having a sporting director that doesn't speak English. Where does that put the power? It puts the power with the people that can speak Spanish. And it's just a small thing. His English will get better. You know, he's Italian. He speaks Spanish. I'm sure he speaks Portuguese. But it's just another thing. You know, this guy is going to be one-on-one in with Arteta. Nobody else is going to be able to get in there. You know, I don't know whether Josh Kroenke can speak Spanish or Italian. I'm sure he can't. Jason Ato can speak multiple languages. But this move, if it works, like peak Diego Simeone and peak Andrea Berta, then we're winning. But I'm just a little bit worried. And even with the shift in some of the rumors that you're seeing out there, going from a 21-year-old to a 27-year-old, these are the shifts that can cost you if you don't get the moves right. You can absorb failure at Atletico Madrid. I don't think you can absorb failure in the Premier League with quite the same clip, if you know what I mean. I think it's harder to absorb.
I don't think it's funny because some of the squaddies are saying this is the first negativity I've heard about Berta, and then Greek Commander, why are you being pessimistic? But what if Berta takes us forced? I think that's what Pedro was just saying, that this is a flip side to the coin. Everyone thought, you know, Graham Hunter and Kevin Hatchard were on the show, and Graham Hunter in particular talked about how really Diego Simeone is the Don at Atletico Madrid. So it's not too dissimilar, is it, Pedro, in terms of the power? Because Diego Simeone is the one who's going to attract the players, but still Berta had to make those deals happen. He's the one, you know, sitting across a table, having a cappuccino along the Croisette or wherever in London, making these deals happen. So I'm just trying to understand and get into the psyche of, are they trying to duplicate completely what happened at Atleti?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think you want to be duplicating what they do at Atleti. Like, Arsenal are a much bigger club. I think we're trying to topple more clubs. Like, it's a more moneyed league. It's more competitive. And the reason that I'm offering a negative, like my deep passion is so boring. but like organizational structure and culture. Like I love reading about it, like from all different companies, all different sporting sides. I love talking to people about it. It's a real passion of mine, and that's why this signing offers me pause. And also I work in football, so I understand some of these elements. A sporting director is not just about transfers, and that's where fans get it wrong. And I think we all get taken by the crisp white shirt, the looking, very corporate Italian. Like, I think we all get taken by that. This is a guy that's going to walk into a room, everyone's going to turn. He's just out there doing deals. He's hitting the phones. That's just one element. You have to have a sporting director that believes in data. You have to have a sporting director that is deeply entrenched in the idea of sports science and performance. You have to have somebody that's willing to innovate. You have to have somebody that rallies the troops, somebody that's willing to make big decisions, somebody that's willing to lean on expertise of other people. Like, the idea that this is just a guy to come in and do transfers is such a small element of the job. Like, you think of our problems this season, our problems have largely been geared around load management. We can't keep our best players, who are extremely robust, on the pitch long enough. A sporting director's got to come in. He's got to sit with the performance guys. He's got to sit with the data guys. He's got to look at the matches. He's got to look at training sessions and say, hey, we've done an investigation into these injuries, Mikel, and we think it might be you. We think it might be you put too much load on Bukayo Saka. Why was Bukayo Saka playing in the League Cup? Next year, if we want to get to the promised land, you can't be putting him anywhere near the League Cup. So that's why I wanted somebody I like the idea of sporting directors that have done a lot with a lot with a little. I think he's done a lot with a lot in a league that spends a lot. Atletico have spent 900 million under him. It's not a small club, but I like the guy at Monaco. I think it's Thiago Monaco. Like Dan Ashworth, he's had a horrendous time at Man United. Got kicked out after 5 months, but he had Premier League pedigree, and he had some of that scouting and that data stuff that I would have liked to have seen at Arsenal. Alabe, not as interested in him, but he built an amazing Sociedad side, with a whole bunch of players that have streamed into us. The contacts element of it just worries me, and fans are very focused on transfers, but like that is just that's 2 months a year that you're doing transfer window stuff. What are you doing for the rest of it? How are you incrementally improving performance across all of your sporting departments that sit under you? And there's a lot of these big clubs now.
Yeah. No, it's a phenomenal point and an angle. And, I think, do you think that Mikel set himself up or the club up for failure? Matt put this in there, talking about having a huge summer. Some of the buzzwords I've heard for the last, year: Arsenal are developing interest in, Arsenal are monitoring X, and they've done nothing. But do you think that this is him putting pressure on the club, or he's very clever, isn't he, Mikel? He's started to learn and understand how to use press conferences and the media. He's become so much more, savvy. He's the one with all the power. Do you think that he set himself up or the club up for a little failure here, or do you think he believes the huge summer angle?
It's going to be a huge summer. I don't think he's pressuring the club. Part of the reason that Mikel signed a new deal at Arsenal, the reason that he keeps on signing new deals is, the only thing he cares about is winning trophies. That's all he cares about. Arsene Wenger cared more about self-preservation than winning trophies. Arteta would be like, if you said you could be in this job for 5 years, you're going to finish third every year, and you're going to make 10 million a year, or you can spend 180 million and win a title, and then we're going to fire you the next season because you drop out the top 4. He'd be like, I take the first one every time. Like, he just wants to win the biggest trophies, and he wants to be around people that want to do the same. So I don't think he's putting pressure on the club. I think he's telegraphing to fans, this is what's going to be happening. Be excited. And Arteta can't come out and say, I need a 9 that could score with both feet, can give us opportunities with outrageous pace. I need explosive bang bang players on the left. I need a better 6 who's more mobile or more young. Can't come out and say that. but he can say it by saying it's going to be a big summer because it tells them, I know the problems better than anybody and we're going to fix them. So, but Arteta is clever because, you know, he's built the club around himself and he's got king-like status without delivering a Premier League trophy.
It's unbelievable. And what if I said to you, part of my what if is that he is culpable as well this season? You know, part of the what ifs are the injuries, the red cards, refereeing decisions. We spoke to Keith Hackett together about a lot of that. But what if he had played Waneri earlier when Odegaard was injured? You know, what if, you know, he didn't try to put square pegs in round holes with playing certain players out of position? Sometimes it was for necessity. Thomas Partey at right back, that was a necessity for a time. But he also liked to try and do it when the whole squad was fit. Is he part of the what ifs? Do you think that's fair or foul?
Oh, 100%. You can't be a king, behave like a king, get treated like a king, and then when things go wrong, blame it on your courtiers. Like this is, this season in a large part is down to Arteta. Things you can't blame on him. The dithering last summer, I don't think it's his fault that we didn't spend 200 million. He would have been banging the table harder than anybody. You cannot avoid the reality that Liverpool had an unbelievable start because they had favourable fixtures, which we did not. And Liverpool did not get the same issues as we had with Pogba this year. Those red cards derailed our season. And if we didn't have those red cards, we would still be in a title race right now. But areas that you can blame Mikel Arteta. Marino and Calafiori are Arteta signings. 100% Arteta signings. He decided that he would take his limited funds and spend it on a 28-year-old left-sided 8 that wasn't really doing the things that we expected of a left-sided 8. I don't know about you, so. And he decided to put it into another centre-back that he converted to a left-back, knowing that he was injury-prone. And those issues have cost us. And the biggest problem that we've had all season, Mikel Arteta has run the players into the ground. It's really, really clear. He has a very dated, macho opinion that players shouldn't feel fatigue and the very best players can play 50, 60, 70 games a season. He said it a few years ago about Bukayo Saka, and he overplayed Bukayo all season and we paid the price. Martin Odegaard, broken early on, still hasn't really recovered to my mind. Gabriel out. I know that Gabriel was a bit of an accident yesterday. Can't fully blame him for that one. Kai Havertz, broken in Dubai. You could have just left him at home and then we might have a chance of these big trophies. And until Mikel Arteta addresses the fact that he is responsible for breaking the players, it's not bad luck. You can manage a lot of these solutions. I don't think we're ever going to reach the promised land. So, having extra players is all well and good, but if you break those extra players, you're still back in the same position. And it's notable that Liverpool under Klopp, I watched a documentary on Klopp. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. Klopp said,
keep going. It's great stuff.
Klopp said in this documentary, he was another king. Klopp said in this documentary, said, rock and roll football isn't actually as much effort as you imagine. Actually, if you play rock and roll football, you get the ball back quicker and you don't have to run as much. Despite us seeing his teams consistently fail because they were knackered, despite us seeing tired players fail at the end of last season. And it's like that sort of denial that managers get. And when you're a king, no one will say, Mikel, you're breaking. You're the reason that Bukayo Saka is broken because you played him in all the League Cup games. No one says that. So until he learns to adapt to that side of the game and get smart with fitness, like Arne Slot did. I mean, Arne Slot has 2 30-year-olds in the top 5 for Premier League minutes played this season. Salah and Virgil van Dijk. That is not luck. That is incredible. That's just smart planning. And Liverpool hired a manager who knew how to manage fitness. I'm not sure that is there.
Yeah. So with all that said, and I love the direction the conversation is going. You mentioned, all of those players, Martinelli out as well for a time. Timber. I mean, why didn't he sub Timber? Look, I know it's hindsight 2020, but we were having a conversation with Demian and Albert on Monday's show. And Demsek asked us in the chat, he goes, which game is more important, Fulham or Real Madrid? But I think what he meant was, who do you start versus, of course, the Real Madrid game is more important. And I wouldn't have been mad if Gabriel was protected at all costs for the Real Madrid game. I wouldn't have been mad if Kivior had started against Fulham. They'd played a lot of football. They were coming off a disappointing loss. I know they're a bogey team for us. I wouldn't have been mad if he had, protected certain players. This is it's the same with pulling players from international duty. He hasn't learned the dark arts of that yet. Like, why didn't he sub Timber? He has silently, working in the shadows, along with Gabriel, been one of our most important players, probably one of his most significant signings since he's been manager at the Arsenal. Why not sub him? I don't get it, Pedro. And that makes me wonder and worry about whether is he still the right man for the job going forward. 2 questions there for you. Why does he continue to be so, I don't know if it's arrogant or egotistical or he knows better. Of course, he's the manager of Arsenal. I'm not. What do I know? But if everyone else can see it, why can't he? And is he still the right guy?
I think it's just part of his DNA. I think you get raised on certain belief systems, don't you? As a kid, like you can't really say it now. Like boys don't cry or whatever. Growing up in England, all right. So you build that into your system. So that's just who you are. And then when you see it happening elsewhere, that becomes part of like what you're about. If your belief is elite players don't get injured and injury is just a mental hurdle to overcome. It's just pain. Pain is a psychological trick, and the best players play through pain. He said it. He's got out and said it. He believes that the best players in the world play through pain and they get through the season. Alex Ferguson had a little bit of that, and actually some of the weaker managers, maybe we've seen, latter stage Arsene Wenger, big name players on big contracts would literally joke at the training ground about which games they were going to miss. They didn't like playing the tough away games, didn't like going up north. So the same players would fake injuries, say that they had back problems, and they just wouldn't show up. So the counterpoint to mollycoddling is that players can take advantage. But where we're at is it feels like you play them until you break them. And if you break them, that's just part of the game. And I don't think that viewpoint is very modern.
It's archaic. It's
not working for us. It's not working for us.
And one of those gladiators that he's helped build, gladiators versus Galacticos. We spoke to Lee Judges about this too. We've lost the gladiator. We really truly have. And I just want to put real quick some of these comments up. Ian says, sub him for who? No one wants Partey at right back. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. No, this is where he should do it. That's the point. Yeah. This is a perfect example, Ian, of get him off. He's too important. Put Partey at right back for the rest of the game. Alvin is saying, you're overlooking the impact of international duty. Odegaard was injured on international duty. We've lost. Okay, so yeah, that happens. Okay. England are culpable for Saka as well, playing him in meaningless games, but the majority of their football is played at their club. And, Gabriel as well plays for Brazil. There are certain players, Super Kev always used to say, I'd say players should be treated equally. He goes, no, Soph, it's never that way. You always have 2 or 3 stars at a club that get treated differently, and rightly so, because of the value that they bring to the club. And I know that people have not been fans of Kai Havertz, and of course we can do better, but you're realizing how much we're missing him. Look, Marino's probably doing a better job up front than he has done in midfield, to be fair. But he should have been, like you said, he shouldn't have gone to Dubai, or he should have been the player in Dubai. I've said it many times, sitting by the pool with a mocktail, sipping a pina colada. It's just... these are the moments where you do the square pegs and the round holes. Greek Commander says, our biggest problem was our playing style. I wanted to get to this as well. What is being asked of the players on the pitch? he is obsessed with winning duels. He's obsessed with the possession obsession this season is insane. It feels like the joy has been sucked out of the players. The way we played over the last 2 seasons, you know, now it feels like the strategy is play not to lose versus play to win. Asking players like Martinelli, it's no coincidence our front three all went out with hammies, right? What they have to do off the ball, tracking back. What's your take on the what if, the impact of the tactics this season?
I'm kind of against blaming tactics for injuries. Like, we have high demands of players, but you know, so do Manchester City, and Manchester City have rarely struggled with injuries over the last 5 years. But Man City are right at the top of the table for rotating their starting 11s. Liverpool, you know, they play a fun, exciting, direct brand of football, and they haven't had a lot of injuries this year. You know, there's elements of luck to it, but there are also elements that you can control. And I think until we, you know, start seeing teams move away from the type of systems that Arsenal have, I think that put it more on how you look after players in training, how you rotate them in games, like how you are strategic about the subs that you bring on. You know, like the Kai Havertz injury was done in Dubai training. Like, when you're right, you should have been sitting by. Shouldn't did we even need to go to Dubai this year? Would it not have just been as beneficial to stay at home, give everybody a rest? You know, I don't think they went to Dubai with their wives and girlfriends, so it wasn't like it was the first time. But Arteta wanted to be with the players. He wants to control every element, and then we end up in these situations. So it's like, what do you do when you're not on the pitch? Is where I would focus it, because you want, you know, you bring in these big athletes, you want them doing what big athletes do, and I think controlling space and winning duels has got us to the position that we're in. We just need to make sure that we're fresher for longer, and we don't collapse in February and lose all our key players, and then we're, you know, finishing second for the third or fourth time in a row.
Okay, so I want to get one more. I want to end on a couple of positives with you, but we do have to discuss the loss of Gabriel before the Real Madrid game. Pedro, it's a ball buster, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if that could be a really bad one. He could be out for the rest of the season, which is nightmarish. And again, all of our luck happens. All of our bad luck seems to happen in pockets around the team. So Ben White, knee problem, probably not going to be about for Madrid. Calafiori, tweaked hamstring or knee problem or whatever it was, like bad luck injury. You know, I saw the slip. It wasn't you know, nothing we could do about that. And for the second season running, you're looking at having Kivior as a centre back in a major game, in a game against a team that lets you have the ball. They're just hunting out mistakes, and he has mistakes in it. So it's a disaster, and it's just, for me, in my head, the season's written off. But the depressing thing about Gabriel, and I don't think you can do anything about that injury yesterday. Like, that injury is how he's fallen. You can't protect against those. That's kind of like an impact injury. But we signed the best young left-sided centre-back in Europe this summer, and we haven't played him as a centre-back all year. So even if we were going to slip Calafiori in there, how many times have you seen him play at centre-back this season? None, because Arteta wants Gabriel and Saliba in there every single minute of every single game. And, you know, we're back to the same problem. If you don't manage your players, you get issues like this.
Okay, let's end on a couple of positives with Pedro here, and then we will let him go. Of course, the return of Bukayo, and this was a bit of a throwback last night, seeing Gabby, little Gabby, and Bukayo connecting. By the way, that pass from Gabriel Martinelli, I've seen some people say, "Oh, did you mean it?" Shut up. That was such a beautiful goal. I think that's probably one of our best goals all season, Pedro. It was a sight for sore eyes. The reception he got was amazing. And of course, it's marred by Gabriel's injury, but we have to go on. We have to find a way. I keep saying we need to channel 2006. That was before we lost Big Gabby at the back. There was no Sol Campbell, no Ashley Cole, Senderos at centre back, Flamini at left back. Of course, we had Thierry Henry up front, which makes all the difference, everybody. But, football has a funny way of playing out sometimes, especially in knockout competitions. But the return of Bukayo Saka, Martinelli playing the way he is, talk to me a little bit about, the what ifs going forward, and what it can be for the rest of the season.
I don't know. It's like I, normally try and bring too much positivity when I chat to you on the shows, but I'm not really.
We
there.
all know you're toxic positive.
Yeah, I'm not there I'm not in being negative I'm being realistic. I don't think. I think it was best attack in the world versus the best defense in the world. We no longer have the best defense in the world against Madrid because Gabriel, for me, has been our best defender all season, without a shadow of a doubt. I think Saliba even mentioned it in a recent interview. Our attack is a little bit better, but you don't have a focal point like Kai Havertz in there, which makes it really, really difficult against that Madrid team. I think it is going to be very, very difficult to beat Madrid over two legs with someone like Jakub Kiwior in defense. And I think he's a talented player. I think if he goes back to Italy to rebuild his confidence, he could do great things. I don't think he has the physicality. I don't think he has the confidence. And I feel like he's going to get overawed by playing against such a massive team. Things that I'm excited about from now until the end of the season is we're probably secure in the top four unless there's an absolute disaster. So we need to use the remaining months to find solutions to some of these problems, because these solutions that we're hunting out now will help us next season when we need to rotate. Can so-and-so drop in at centre-back? Can somebody come in and play in a midfield role? Could we use this young player and put them there? It's all about experimentation with a view to we're going to learn a lot of things about what we can and cannot do next season. And we're going to learn who can be rotated in effectively and who cannot. And it will also tell Arteta a lot about the mentality of the squad, which I think is top tier. But he might want to make some changes to people that he doesn't think are going to be good for next year. Trossard. Has Trossard been where he needs to be in the games that he's been asked next year? Who knows? Let's see what he's got until the end of the season. And the other positive that I've got, if Martinelli can play like that, like he did last night, creating 4 chances, looking up, making good passes, being definitive in key moments, then maybe we don't need to move Martinelli on in the summer. And if we can get Saka fit from now until the end of the season, it's still going to take him another, 8-9 games to get back to his peak. But if he can leave this season without injuries, fit and ready for the start of next season, then I think we'll be in good shape, because we have no crazy preseason this year. There's no competition in the way. Like, it's a clear run. It's 6 weeks with Arteta and his coaching staff. And I think that will be really good, especially if we get deals done nice and early. Like, I don't want to be like dragging things through into August like we have done in the past.
Right. And 10 seconds before I let you go, David Raya doesn't really get mentioned a lot, but the importance of David Raya in these games coming up with Real Madrid, a goalkeeper can be the difference between winning and losing a tie. He has been, along with Timber and Big Gabby, one of our best players this season. Just real quick, 10 seconds on David Raya.
I think he's the best goalkeeper in the world, in my opinion. I think his calmness, his ability to claim crosses, I think his shot stopping is absolutely electric. And we're going to need him for that Madrid game, because if he's on fire, maybe we do have a chance. Maybe we do have a chance.
Pedro, thank you so much for joining. What have you got coming up? Let the kids know. Stay on, squaddies. I'm going to stay on for a few minutes with you. We're going to let Pedro go right now. What have you got coming up? Let the kids know.
If you want to go to legrove.co.uk, I do a daily newsletter where I dump all my thoughts, and then we talk it out in the Arsenal Opinion podcast. And we're near daily at the moment, so it's going to be an interesting end to the season. And if you like talking about culture, transfers, like, read the website. There's loads of that sort of stuff on there.
At ease, Pedro. We'll see you soon. Thanks once again for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Sophie. See you later.
Thanks, mate. Thanks. Bye-bye. That's Pedro, everyone. Thanks to him for his time. And, let's see what's going on here. Hold on one second, you guys. Let's see. Something weird's going on with my setup. Just wanted to stay on for a few minutes because I had a few bits that I wanted to kind of share with you. Another great guest. Thank you so much. Shalom. He's really good, Pedro. I really do like his take on stuff, and his articles at LeGrove as well. Very detailed. And if you like, long form reading and not just reading headlines, it's really good stuff. And it's always good to get different perspectives of Arsenal fans. And he works for St. Louis City as well. And, when he talks about being ingrained in the organizational, operational side of football, and the way he talked about Berta's role and how it's more than just, signings and stuff like that, I think is really important as well. So, yeah, I just wanted to say as well that, man, last night was a gut punch. And I just wanted to... this morning, it's been a gut punch all week. My water leak is fixed. Thanks for asking, Tammy. There's always stuff going on in people's lives, like, water leaks, family issues or whatever. Can't wait to get my hair cut tonight and do something nice for myself, put it that way. And it just was a typical moment of what a roller coaster ride this season has been. And if there's a player that we absolutely didn't want to see on the turf, it was Big Gabby. And to see his disappointment, knowing what this meant, he knew right away. And all this talk about the referee should have kicked it. We've complained about other teams not kicking it out. Let's just not go there. Saying that his injury could have been made worse. It's football, And Big Gabby could have just sat on the turf as well, which he eventually did. But the warrior and the gladiator that he is, he just kept going. But this is where, for me, I was like, I've tried to look for hope. I've tried to look for silver linings and threads. And those listening on audio, I'm showing pictures of Gabby going off injured and stuff. This was it for me. I felt like we had hope. Pedro said it, the best forward line in football going against the best back line. And I've enjoyed showing this gladiatorial photo of Saliba and Gabriel. Just the idea of them going up against Real Madrid's forward line together in combat. To me, I was excited about seeing that. I think, and I know that we all were. And because of those two, because of David Raya, because of Urian Timber, because of having Benjamin White on deck, we felt like we had a chance. And I said to Kevin Hatchard when he was on, it's really the only way to win this is our defense versus their attack. And the fact that that's been taken away, and who knows what's going to happen with Timber as well, the fact that we're not going to see that matchup is really disappointing as a fan. And then on the flip side of that, of course, you see the wonder and the beauty that is the return of Saka. And seeing these two combine yesterday was just an amazing, vista. And as happy as I was, I just thought to myself, wow, we get Saka back. He looks like he's ready to go. Martinelli's hitting form at a right time. I know it's just one game. You got Saliba and Gabriel. You got Timber. Football is the hope that kills you. And so Vinny and Vespa completely agree with me. And I just wanted to kind of say it's okay to be sad about the season. That's why I wanted to do the what if show as well with Pedro, because there are a lot of what ifs. VAR, red cards, referee decisions, injuries, poor play, not being able to combat and break down the low block, unable to kind of beat the smaller teams, not having a striker, putting square pegs in round holes. It's all come full circle for the Arsenal. And right now it feels like it is a season to forget. But we still have one big game for the men's team and another big game for the women's team as well. It's not all over yet. And you have to kind of be a dreamer because the women are facing Lyon and the men are facing Real Madrid. And they are the absolute beasts of Europe. So we'll keep believing and we'll keep trying to be positive. But at the same time, losing Big Gabby really took the wind out of my sails. And I just wanted to share that with you. And yeah, Wesbird, miracles do happen. And I think, Tammy, that's what Vinny was trying to explain. But this is a really big miracle. This is huge. It was going to be tough enough having Timber, and we don't know what's happening with Timber yet, and we'll find out tomorrow with regards to what's happening with both players. But we can't say Big Gabby's been our most important, best player all season, and then not, you know, in the same token say we can't beat Real Madrid without him. And I know in 2006 that everyone said that we can't beat Real Madrid without Sol Campbell and Ashley Cole. Senderos. Who's the worst defender, Senderos or Kivior? I'll let you guys noodle and decide on that one. Flamini was just kind of like this hybrid, gung-ho soldier who, you put him in goal, he'll play there. Flamini was just like a warrior, a gladiator type, right? He could do and play anywhere. You want to, you know, and never complained about anything. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And I just wanted to share with you how totally gutted I am, and I know we all are, that he unfortunately isn't going to be able to play in that game. There are miracles, absolutely, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Okay, well done on beating Fulham yesterday. Keep it up. 9 points. Maybe Everton can do a favour. Talk about miracles all the way around. Maybe I'm taking it a little bit too far now with the miracles, but yeah, I have to say I feel a little bit gutted. And now you're coming out with all the greatest defenders that have ever played for the Arsenal. Appreciate your sense of humour. But I'll be back tomorrow. I think the show's going to be at 8 tomorrow. And I'll be back with Kenny Ken and talk about truths. And someone who's been around the club for a long time, knows his history, was there in 2006 as well, seeing the highs, seeing the lows. And, you know, we go back a little bit, and Super Kev was very fond of Kenny Ken, and it's going to be fun to have him on the show again for another football conversation. Until then, if anyone sees Newman out there in the big bad world, I think he's mad at me since the last board meeting, and I have not received new art. Maybe he's actually gone away, like the great artists do, to paint his Mona Lisa. We'll soon find out. I'll check in on him. I'll send him an email. A few of you asked me where he is. Until tomorrow, squaddies, take care. Love you lots. And don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. Thanks again to Pedro. And at ease, at ease.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Don't forget to share the show with your friends. Hit the like button on the way out. It's absolutely free. New show coming as well on Friday. Gunners Unscripted, a brand new series on our video, the video section, the video playlist of the channel. I think you guys will enjoy it. It is all about Arsenal fans from around the world. And we have a new host who'll be hosting that, Jonathan Pierre. So please look out for that. I'll let you guys know when it's going to be coming. And Friday, I think we're going to upload it, and it'll be on the video section. Gunners Unscripted. This show has always been about you. At ease, everyone.